Make sure everything is nice and live and streaming as we go. Beautiful. Microphone's good. Everything's good. You're feeling good, Parul. Feeling
I'm
good.
feeling great.
Sensational.
Yes,
Well, we're very well. A little intro, and then we'll get into it.
sounds good.
Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined today by Parul Sharma. She is a soulful confidence coach. She helps women to shatter their fears, shatter their limiting beliefs, and really just express themselves confidently so they can show up as the best version of themselves at work, in their relationships, and just in their day-to-day life. So really excited to talk to you today about your business, how you run it, the kind of people you work with, and basically just see what's been going on with you for the past 2 years. So, Parul, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. That was a great introduction, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Sensational. I felt I stumbled a little bit on my intro, but that's okay. We're live and raw, uncut, and that's the way we like it. We were just talking about how I kind of like to keep these conversations as organic as possible because I feel that a lot of people, especially if you've done a few interviews, it can be common to have a almost like a canned response for a lot of questions. And I don't know if you've ever used or tried to use like a sales script in your business, but
Mhm.
everything always sounds better when it comes out, off the top of your head, I feel.
Totally, I completely agree. I actually was saying because I just held my masterclass last weekend, and while I was preparing for the masterclass, I couldn't help but like constantly think how good is it to not have a script? How good is it to not go by word to word? Because that's just adds to extra stress, and then you're not really in the moment. While when it's like an impromptu chat, it's organic. I think it's just so much better, and it flows like it's meant to flow.
100%. Just trusting that you know what you're talking about. And we do trust that. What was your masterclass? What happened?
Oh yeah, so it was the masterclass was for the launch of my new group coaching mastermind called the Soul Collective, and the masterclass was titled "Soul Aligned Practices for Unshakable Self Confidence," and it basically all of this links into the core of my work, which is about finding your inner strength, connecting with your own inner power, so you can show up confidently in life.
Love that. Love that. And was that live or was that on online?
It was on Zoom over two
Yep.
days on Saturday and Sunday. And it went really well. Everyone had breakthroughs on Sunday. And like that just made my heart so happy and so full. And this week we started with the first group of the Soul Collective. And I actually had my first of all, my workshop with them last night on intuition and how to access and strengthen your intuition. So yeah, like I mean that's really the realm in which I work, and getting to do that, having great results from the masterclass felt really good.
That's great. So, is your masterclass a free event and then you bring people in and then invite them to join your program? Is that the process?
Yes. So this was the first masterclass I held. So it was a
Hmm.
free event. And it was primarily, I introduced the concepts of fear, trauma, how these things, unconscious patterns, and the things that we pick up in childhood, how they impact us as adults and hold us back from showing up as our confident selves. So that was like the main message of the masterclass. But the flow was exactly what you said. So it was a free event. I launched my group program, and then we had the replays and everything available for people to watch after. And yeah, it was like overall it was a success, which was great.
That's amazing. And you said you just launched your first intake for your group program. So, do you do kind of a launch model where you bring in a bunch of ladies at once and then launch all together for 12 weeks and then start again in a few months' time?
Yeah, so I've tried a group program, and this simply, again, like this really stemmed from the fact that I am such a community person. Like, I really love bringing my colleagues together, and, like I wanted to create a space where my clients and people and experts who I know in the field can be all together in one space sharing things. So that was the idea. And it's a 6-month mastermind. So my plan is to open the doors once a quarter and get the new group of people in. And yeah, and it started with basically a free event, launching the program, bringing people in, then opening it up to the market, and then closing the doors for next 3 months.
That's cool. I think I like the launch model. I work with a few people who do it, and one of my clients, she runs 2 programs a year, 6 months at a time. Has an awesome life because she kind of just doesn't need to do much marketing and selling for 3 months, uh,
Yeah.
uh, which is great. So I really enjoy the group model. It's a little stressful selling the program than closing the doors. But then I think the results you get from having a bunch of people just going through the journey together is awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And I just want to say that, because I spoke to my business coach a fair bit about this. Really don't feel incredible closing the doors, because then you do have, I've had people in the past, where I'd be in the middle of my coaching container and they'd want to work. So like, just to turn someone away just doesn't feel right intuitively, not just for the sake of revenue, but also because we're in this space because we love helping people, right? So if someone's feeling called for that help at the in that moment, then you don't want to turn them away. But I thought, but my idea is that I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see how this goes. And then if it makes more sense to leave it open, try a different model, yeah, like I might try that. So completely open to testing, tweaking, experimenting, and seeing what works.
Everything's a test until you do it, right?
Yeah.
So you're we were just speaking. You've come into about just about 2 years running this business now, which is great. So given like what you've just said about experimenting and trying different versions of your programs, what do you think are some of the things you've learned over the past 2 years you can take into 2023 that maybe you wish you knew a bit more about back in 2020?
Mm. I think a big one would be for, and I would say this for anyone who's just starting out, is to, like, when I went in, I obviously had high expectations of what all I can achieve in the next 6 months to 12 months. And, like, just like being really ambitious about the whole thing. But of course, like it can turn out that way. And it's good to have those goals and visions, but things often not turn out the way we expect them to. So one of my biggest lessons has been to really just being open to whatever happens, not taking it personally. It's not a reflection on your self-worth, who you are, your expertise, but simply the fact that things can take time to settle in. It takes time to grow a business. It takes time to nurture something new that you started. So having that mindset of that I'm not a failure if something isn't working out, but that this is growth, there are learnings on the way, and I'm here for the long run.
Yeah, easier said than done, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's hard, and that's why it's like, again, it's like, being in this space, like we also need to embody the things that we teach our clients, right? So it's hard, it's constant work, and it forces us to work a lot on ourselves. And I actually believe that starting your own business is also a spiritual journey. Like, it is whole, like a whole spectrum of things will come up, like the money mindset and our own self-worth, and like the fears of putting ourselves out there, imposter syndrome. So working on all of that constantly and having support for yourself as well while you're supporting others, are like two of my biggest takeaways from this year.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a good insight. I We were talking before we came on the show about how I really don't do any sort of personal development or anything like that, and I'm kind of I'm not resistant to it. I just don't think I've got that much time to do it. I did heaps in the early days, but then I was being interviewed the other day, and the guy said, "Well, being a dad, I've got two-year-old daughters." He said, "Being a dad is probably your own form of personal development now." And so I think, yeah, the having the new family, growing a business, all these things are my day-to-day development, like you said, money mindset,
Mm.
managing your expectations, increasing your capacity for stress and patience and all these things. You're just thrown into it. You never know what's going to happen in a business. Hey, and so
Totally.
managing your own expectations the same way you would for your clients is something that a lot of us could do a lot better, I think.
Yeah, completely. And I think really just also learning to understand that, like when I started, of course, like my business mentally felt like, excuse me, my business felt like a reflection of who I was as a person, which is not wrong. But at the same time, it helps to differentiate that, okay, your business it's like an entity in itself, and it is not a reflection on who you are as a person. Because if it's like if we keep taking everything personally that happens here, like we are going to burn out. We're going to keep like pushing ourselves instead of letting ourselves step back to see the bigger picture. So even like I think that these are like just mindset hacks or mindset tweaks that have really helped me, and I'm still working through them because I'm still in newer stages of the business. um yeah, there was one more thing I was going to say. But
Yeah,
that's just something that keeping in mind.
absolutely. That makes so much sense, and I think it's funny for someone who's been in this business for 2 years. You've got really good insight into what it's like running a business. Were you running a business before you were coaching?
I did, yes. So I did have I do. I did have a business with my ex-husband, and it's called Blush Petals, and we import premium fresh cut flowers from all over the world into Australia.
Wow.
So I was managing stuff for that. I was also managing marketing and PR for that business.
Mm,
And yeah, overall, I think also just having worked in jobs, I feel like everything has been learning curve. So I'm now getting to apply that in my business. So it's insightful, it's scary, it's fun, fascinating, all of those things.
100%. And now your product is you, rather than birds of paradise or whatever another kind of flower is.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and so it's much easier to take it personally when you are the product and you are the service, right? But
exactly.
what you just said is great. If we take it personally, it's just never gonna work. It's structural. Business is just structure, not all about how good you are as a person. There's broke people who are the best people ever, and then there's really
Mhm.
successful people who are awful. So, and
Yes.
there's a lovely mix of in between as well. So, okay, sweet. Well, you've just mentioned a bit about what you were doing in the past. I like a lot of coaches that I meet. You've had some pretty heavy trauma in your life, and I invite you to talk about that as much or as little as you want to. But coming from someone like me who had a really kind of easy childhood growing up, why do you think so many people are attracted to the coaching industry as a job
Mm.
after they've gone through such difficult experiences?
That's I love that question. Simply because I've thought about this a lot myself on you know, like the question that was in my mind was just because, like, am I doing this just because I have been through this? And a part of the answer is like that is yes, because not just because I think, okay, I think when like for a long time in my life, I was living in that state of why me, and just being unhappy with the fact that, well, this happened and this happened and this happened, and what does this mean about me as a person? And so I would feel good if my husband would like appreciate me, or I would get that external validation, because to an extent, when I would get that validation, I would feel accepted because I was not accepting myself just as I was. And I used to feel disconnected from other people, even my siblings. um, so when I started to, so first of all, there was that awareness that there is something wrong with me, and hence I am not good enough, which was just always there. and second, when I started to go through this phase where I think I just kept getting deeper and deeper into personal development, into coaching, into, peeling back the layers of my own trauma. Because the more I did these things, the more I discovered how my feelings and my mindset about myself began to change. So having seen that, oh, like I'm doing this work and it's actually making me more confident. I'm doing this work and that emotion is starting to feel less heavy, like guilt or fear, sadness. Like I lost my mom when I was 11 years old, and it wasn't an easy death. It was shocking, it was sudden. But just to give you an example, when I was training on emotional freedom technique last year, it was like I basically started working with my trainer on, oh, I'm just afraid to put myself out there. Like, who's going to listen to me? Like the basic fears. And when we started working on this fear, what actually came down, like what was lying at the bottom of this was my guilt on not being able to save my mom. And I had no idea I was carrying this. So, so when I started doing these things, I was like, oh my gosh, like there is so much scope for this kind of work because I have seen this in action. I have seen how this can help me, and this is helping me. And so I want to be able to give it back to the planet, to the people, to people around me, to our community, just because this can help. This can help so many people, and it can help us all live a better life. So there was that aspect. But of course, then for me personally, there was also the fact that I started to realize that I actually really enjoy sharing and, coaching and helping others and talking about these things. So for me, then it was about deciding to combine the two things, like feeling very satisfied in sharing my knowledge and also being able to impact someone's life in a very positive way, because I had proof that this works.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly do. You certainly do. I can imagine that for so many people who went through something as hard as you did, losing your mum suddenly when you were 11, um, a lot of people wouldn't go down or wouldn't be able to get out of that why me mindset, understandably so. And so the fact that you've done that and then done so much work on it and are now able to share that with other people and improve their lives, hats off to you. That's really, really impressive and super. I'm super glad that you did. I'm super glad that you made it out of that dark place and came into this
Thank you.
beautiful, you know, light person you are today. You're making me happier just by being around you, and I think that's going to be a great asset to your just to whoever you end up working with. So really, really cool. Congrats
Thank
on
you.
being awesome. um, so
And to you too. Thank you for creating this space.
I love this space. It's a I talk about it all the time. I transparently started the podcast as a way of being able to cold cold network with people and cold DM people I wanted to work with, and just my
Mm,
initial outreach being, "Hey, love your business. I'd love to have you on the podcast." And then they
mm,
come on, they realize I'm a digital marketer for coaches, and then breaks down the barrier of me reaching out to them. But then it just went really well, and now we're coming up on 90 episodes, and I've met so many cool people like yourself who I would have never met outside of having
yeah.
Zoom and this Riverside platform and a podcast, and I think we found you on Matchmaker, the podcasting website.
Yes. Yeah.
It's super cool. So I'm really really enjoying it, and yeah, there's so many good stories out there. A little funny thing from my end is that um, I grew up basically in a enormous house with a dad with a very successful business, private
Mm,
schools, Mercedes is. I was really good at school, super duper easy childhood. And when I got into the coaching space, I would meet all these people with these stories were so difficult, and there was this constant sort of guilt in my head that I didn't have a difficult story, and so I think I often used to look for the tougher parts of my life and trying to elevate
Mm.
them on my social media. Like I used to be uncomfortable with the way I looked, and like I didn't really,
Yeah.
no more than any other teenager. And so, yeah, but then I've just had to accept myself in a different way in how
Mm.
I suppose easy I've had it, and that's not anything to be ashamed of. And then when I went into doing, I didn't do EFT. I did what's the other one? Timeline therapy.
And NLP?
Yeah, I did. So I went to the
Yes.
NLP course mostly for business, but then I went in. I was like, this is going to be a great skill for business, for sales. And then I found myself day two, bawling my eyes out, and that kind of thing, as you do. And the timeline therapy for me really brought out the fact that I was constantly doing poorly in business because uh, my dad had done so well in business, and
Mm.
I was constantly told every year at school, Alex isn't living up to his potential. Alex
Yes.
could do so much better because I was smart but didn't like school. And so it was really, really interesting when I
Mm.
had that realization, like you had your realization about not being able to save your mum, that kind of thing. Those
Yeah.
moments are insanely powerful to be
So
harboring all that stuff inside your head for 20 years and then let it out, and it can change everything in like literally 5 minutes.
totally 100%. It's like this big moment when things come crashing down on you and you're like, oh my gosh, like where was this hiding this whole time and how was I not aware of it? But that's literally how it works, right? Like you've done NLP, so you know how our unconscious patterns, behaviors, stuff we went through in childhood, how all of that is literally hiding under the surface. And we think we're consciously aware of how we are behaving in life and what we are doing, but a lot of the times it's our unconscious that's guiding us. And again, that's another fascinating part of the whole picture for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so interesting and I cannot wait to unpack these things for myself and for other people.
Totally, and that's kind of the next thing I'd love to talk about is we're just both talking about EFT, timeline therapy, NLP, all these coach speak. And when I look at your site and your content, I see a lot of words and phrases that are really well understood in the coaching space, ones we hear a lot on this podcast, such as
Mm-hmm.
stepping into your power, raising your vibration, and then terms like EFT and human design, that sort of thing, which most people outside of the coaching industry have never really come across. So, given that you work with, a diverse range of women, how do you approach explaining what you do to somebody who doesn't have any experience in the personal development space? And has that
Mm-hmm.
evolved at all over the course of your business?
Yes. It's definitely evolved a lot, because when I started last year, I was using these terms very freely. And obviously, it took me a while to realize that for me, it's very natural to use them. For other people, they don't understand what this means. And they have no idea what EFT is, what NLP is. They couldn't even care any less, because all that matters to them is their problem and how I can help them. So, what I started then doing is to simplify the messaging in my marketing, to talk about, like, I made a list of problems, I made a list of solutions that I can offer, and then I started talking to people in those, like words, in the approaching it in a way that they would understand. So if I was to explain my work to someone who doesn't get any of these things, I'll just break it down, saying that, if you are, because all of us understand fear. So I talk a lot about fear. I talk a lot about, not so much about trauma, but more about fear. Because anything that, in any situation, we are not confident because we are afraid of something. So it could be fear of judgment, fear of not being accepted, fear of rejection, fear of being laughed at, fear of looking silly, all of these things. And our main fears as human beings are two. So there is attachment. So our main needs are attachment and authenticity. So a need to be ourselves, and a need to belong and be accepted by other people. This is as taught by Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm a big fan of his work. He's a very famous psychotherapist. So My work, so I mainly talk about fears. I mainly talk about how these fears are stopping us from showing up in our full potential, from saying what we want to say, do what we want to do, taking that step. And this is how we play small in life. Like we hide behind a mask, we hide behind what the society wants us to do. But what is it that you really want to do? How is it that you really want to show up in a relationship, at work, with your body? And if you're holding yourself back in any of these areas, then let's talk. Let's unpack what's holding you back.
That is a perfect explanation, and that I feel is going to be relatable and relevant to most people out there anyway. That
Right.
they know something's holding them back in some space. The awareness that something's holding them back maybe is not there
Yes.
until we talk to them about it. But the fact that they're not quite where they want to be in life
Mhm.
is definitely something a lot of people feel. Parul, can I ask you a massive favor? There's been a tapping sound throughout the podcast. I've not been sure what it
Oh,
was. You know what I think it is? I think it's your earrings hitting against
thanks.
your earbuds. Yeah. So I
I'm
was trying to
so
figure out.
sorry. Oh my
No, that's
gosh.
okay. I couldn't figure out what it was. It only happened when you shook your head, and I
Wow.
just realized that it was it's probably the earrings. So at least for for the next sort of 10, 15 minutes of content, you'll have less tapping going on. It's not really been that bad at all. I was just
Sorry.
no, no, no. I know. I just figured out where it came from. Um, we're always learning little things like this, like hoop earrings and earbuds is a weird combination for a podcast. But who would have thought? Now we know. No, it's been completely fine. There's just been a little light tapping every now and then, but it's not going to affect
Okay.
it at all. You're all
Thank you.
good. No, no apology needed. Yeah, that's really cool. So you brought the topic onto marketing a little bit, which is what we do. It's my space, and I'm really excited to talk about how you do it. One thing I noticed about your, uh, I keep going about on, I keep going on about your website. I think you got a really beautiful website,
Thank you.
and really uh, a valuable website, and the fact that you've got heaps of these incredible free resources on there, which I would call lead magnets.
Hmm.
You've got like the 3 minute self-esteem journal. You have one I really liked, which is the not to do list, all about setting
Hmm.
boundaries for yourself. And to get access to all of them, people have to put in their name and email address.
Hmm.
Um, what's your process of moving someone along from coming to your site or your socials and then downloading one of your free resources to hopefully eventually becoming a paying client?
Mm. So my process is it's simple. It is like I've been working with an SEO expert on my website, and that's why I also have like a range of freebies. So people can go for what connects with them in this space overall. And once they download the freebie, obviously there's like this whole there's like this nurture sequence that they're added to. And in that nurture sequence, there are different calls to action. And now I have a product suite which is entry level. Then I've got connect with confidence, and I'm coming up with the next level of my product as well, which will be called the self mastery. Um, so they're like different nurture sequences for different freebies, and essentially it's the call to action there. And one of the calls to action is again, like I said, I try to connect. I've been trying to break down my messaging to be able to connect with my audience in a way that I'm speaking to their problems. So from there, it leads to a discovery call. And then I jump on a discovery call with them, which is a complimentary 45-minute call. We break down where they're at in life, what's keeping them stuck, what do they need to do to move forward. And I close most of my sales on those calls.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Straight
So
up on a 45-minute call. That's awesome. That's great. That's it's a very impressive thing to be able to do that, especially early. I know you ran a business for a long time before, so you got experience in sales. But that's yeah, the 40 to grab someone from a sort of an email list to a call and to be able to bring a client on board um, within one session is really really impressive. I certainly don't do that. So I'm impressed by people who do.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, it's not that it's only those discovery calls. It's a mix of people. But
Yeah.
if I was talking about that process, then it would be, like they see the messaging, CTAs, discovery call, and then closing the sale on the call. And if it doesn't work, then I don't push people. Like, I'm
Mm.
very intuitive in that way that I would give them their space. And more often than not, they have come back to me, whether it's after a month or 2 or 3 months. Like, I let them be in that space,
Yeah.
that whether that's an industry standard or not. And then the other thing is that I've also had people reach out to me on social media so I also believe in doing like what I'm doing it well. So like I focus on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I've
Hmm.
had people reach out to me through these channels. And when they reach out, something has spoken to them, so they know that they need help and they know that they're happy to, like, if things resonate, they're happy to make that investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two ways where I guess how I close my sales.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. Have you found yourself, if you're getting people reach out to you, which is amazing, such a sign that you're doing great content, do you find yourself ever choosing to say no to working with people?
I did, and it was such a good question. And so, like initially when I started my business, obviously it was like there was this space of, well, why will I say no to working with anyone, right? But I think as I have found my spot and I've found which are the clients that I would love to work with, because they are also invested in themselves and they are showing up for our calls, having done the work or really committed to their own progress. I have realized that there is a certain kind of like there are certain kind of people that I wouldn't want to work with. So I wouldn't say like I've turned back a lot of people, but through the process, I have understood why it's important for me also as a business owner, as a coach, to really make this choice, empowered choice again, of choosing to work with people who I also feel aligned with.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you wouldn't go and just choose to hang out with someone you didn't like. You know, go to the pub with them or go on a holiday with them, or someone who just thinks completely differently to you in most areas of life. Yet so many coaches would take on people who we have a bit of a gut feeling about on the call, but understandably at the beginning when we like a bit of money in the business, we'll just say yes to everyone, and
Yeah,
then but it's often the clients that you shouldn't have said yes to that then really drain you so much more than the other 90% of clients combined. So
totally.
yeah, so I mean you're I, I say this now because you're sort of still 2 years in, which in the scheme of a business is pretty, pretty green in the scheme of a business. But you've got people reaching out. Do you have any sort of a qualification criteria that you'll be using for that a higher tier product you're releasing next year?
Um, I honestly have not like I haven't gone down into all the details of that product yet. But I think my biggest criteria would be someone who's, because okay, the idea behind this product, it's going to be called self mastery. So what I want to do with this product is to really help people you know understand how their brain's working, like what's happening, how can they start to coach themselves, the self coaching model, how can they start to help themselves in situations where they feel stuck, and really just mastering how their emotions, their mind, their body. So my biggest criteria for this would be really working with people who are committed to themselves. Like they have a little, they've dipped their toes in this work. They've worked, like they've done some personal development work. They're spiritual. They understand that there is a bigger scheme of, like there is a bigger picture behind our existence. There is something else really holding life on this planet, running the show, and all of those things. So someone who's coming with that level of awareness, that level of commitment, is who I would want to work with. And this would be a very selective container, because I would just really want these people to see maximum results, and I would just want to focus hugely on a handful of clients within this.
Would that be for with the handful of clients? Would that be for the sake of your schedule, or would that be for the sake of you giving enough energy to each person? Would it be intensive how much you're working with them?
Yeah.
Why did you make that decision?
A bit of both. I, like as a coach or as a healer, if you're working with, let's say, 10 clients a day, that's just going to drain you. And I'm not saying I'm working for 10 clients a day. I'm just saying that's just a number. It's just that if we try to come from a place of lack, feeling like, oh, I need to fill up my calendar as much as I can, that's just not being very intentional and judicious with your own energy and your own time. And once again, I have seen that when I come from not from a scattered headspace, but from a very grounded headspace of what does this client need, I can just show up for them and serve them so much better. So it's a bit of both. Like, I want to be able to focus on them completely with my energy, with my time. And I also really want to be able to give them resources, content, and like if they need help between the sessions, like being able to focus on them in a way that it's very targeted, and it's giving them all the value for their time and investment.
Totally agree. I've been in group coaching programs, kind of like mastermind, high ticket masterminds, where at the beginning there's been like three of us, and then within a few months there's like eight of us, and you definitely notice a difference in how much time you get. And sometimes you find you're on the call and then it's like 45 minutes before you get to talk to the guy, that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's really smart idea. And it's a long game, right? You don't have to get all your clients and all your money this year. There's if you're in this forever, which I
Yeah.
think most of us come into coaching as a bit of a forever business, because it's always going to evolve with us.
Yeah.
Then why do we need to just fill our calendar and just hustle and grow every single month now?
I love
When we
that.
could actually go a little slower and then just, tick up like this. And at some point,
Yeah.
you'll have the capacity to, you know, help more people, whether it's by jumping on stage and, helping 400 people in a room at once, or via your podcast, which gets 500,000 downloads or, a week, or that sort of thing. So I think starting slow, getting incredible results for people, and, knowing where your own boundaries are as well is really important. So yeah, I think we're on the same mindset with that one.
Yeah. And I just want to add to what you said, that like I always remind myself that I'm also in this business, in this space, because it's like I love it. So it's important for me to have fun. And
Mm.
like you said, it's like as long as I'm financially stable, it's fine. No need for me to hustle and just achieve that number goal, and to be able to say that I am, like I'm successful and I've hit $500,000, and like just those 6 figures, 7 figures, like the kind of voices and the noise that we hear in the market. Like, no, like I am in it for the long run. Like, you're in this for the long run. So really just enjoying stopping and smelling the roses in the business, and giving ourselves the space to also just, like just let things sink in, because I also feel like I've grown a lot with the more clients I've worked with, the more it's helping me learn and expand as well. So yeah, just all of those things.
No, it makes total sense. And stopping to smell the roses is absolutely a message I think more of us need to take on in our day-to-day business, in a world of Instagram gurus and Gary V and all these people just telling us to work 18 hours a day and hustle on Instagram till our eyes bleed. I've never
Oh gosh.
resonated with it. I know it's helpful for some people, and all power to them. But for me, I think, I'd rather do it in 5 years, or in, 5 years rather than one, and have a little bit more of a family life, feel
Totally.
healthier, all that sort of thing outside of it. But each to their own. I know hustlers,
Mm.
and they're they're moving a lot faster than me. So it's just everyone's got
Mm.
their own thing, right?
Yeah, everyone's got their own timeline, and that might work for them, great. But again, like it's like I love not comparing myself to other people, and I always remind myself that as long as I'm fine, it's all fine.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're running our own race, which is good to remember. And yeah, I'm super, super impressed with everything you've done in such a short time, Parul. So, yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for letting us into your business and talking to us today on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun, and yeah, I'm really glad we did this.
40 minutes, just like that, hey? Can't believe
Yeah,
it.
I know. You know what they say when you're having fun.
Stop it. Well, I had fun as well, and it's been a great conversation, and I think it's going to be a lot of great insights for the people listening. For all of you 6 people listening live, or anyone who's watching the clips or the recording, thank you so much for doing that. Parul Sharma, thank you so much once again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Alex. It was an absolute pleasure and a really good way to start my day.
I love that you're starting your day at 11 a.m. as well. That's a great sign. That's a great sign. Anyone listening, thank you so much for being here. I'll be back next week with another great episode of Coaches to the Moon. We're coming up on 90 episodes. We are a few away from the end of the year, so I'm really, really excited for that. Thanks so much for being here. Until then, thanks for listening. Much love and peace out.